You want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the
you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have.
It is the reality the left has created.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We were just talking about the importance of diversity in the labor movement. Not even just for diversity's sake, because Feely, it's good to have diverse people or whatever, but because it is, it's beneficial to the mission of the union. It helps us organize when our organizers and when our leaders are reflective of the people that we are a part of, right? It's obvious. And so, and this is true in a lot of different areas. It is more beneficial when you have people doing a job that are coming from multiple perspectives and multiple walks of life. There is a literal strength in diversity. And so that is not to say that all of the corporate DEI programs are done in good faith or anything like that. We have, in fact, been critical of DEI programs and in some instances and in some of the implementations, and you can go back and watch that, particularly our interview with Paul Prescott about it. And so, not a wholesale endorsement of DEI, right? If it's coming from management, you got to be skeptical, okay? But
that's just a good rule in life. If it comes from management, be skeptical.
Right, but you shouldn't be skeptical because it involves black people. And that was the perspective being pushed by Charlie Kirk on his program. Let's play this clip from the Charlie Kirk show.
All right, let me get this queued up here. About the pilots?
Yes.
Okay.
We've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now.
You want to go thought crime? Like, I'm...
Okay. I have never thought that. I have never once been in a plane, and I've flown a lot over the past 2 or 3 years for work. I've never once hit turbulence and been like, oh my God, I'm glad my pilot has a dick. Like, that's just not even occurred to me to have that. Like, what a bizarre thing to admit to.
Yeah, square jaw.
And a square jaw. I mean, it's just wild.
It is very bizarre.
Saying this stuff out loud.
I mean, presumably he doesn't actually think these things when he's on a plane, right? And he's just saying this, but still.
I mean, I don't know. Who knows? Like,
Either
they could
way,
just be
it's
like
bizarre.
dyed-in-the-wool racists. I don't know.
Well, I think that they are, as we'll hear more from them about that.
Pit before we took off, and I feel better now. Thinking about that.
You want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left.
There you go. It's the reality the left has created. The left is not responsible for you being freaked out by black pilots. I'm sorry, Charlie Kirk and whoever that was.
It's the, okay, maybe I'm being racist, but you made me.
You made me racist.
You made me do this.
You made me racist. Yeah, it's just so bizarre. And they're doing all of this because, they have this DEI program and they're trying to get their pilots to 50% women and people of color. And now, if you actually know anything about demographics, having 50% women and people of color is virtually meaningless because that's very easy to do. And to illustrate that, if you look at the Trump coalition, the people who voted for Trump in 2020 and 2016, the majority were women and people of color.
Okay? Technically.
Like, it's not, like, that's not hard to do, right? There's just so many, like, half of the population is women, right? Just half of the people that you have to pull from are women. So right there, you've got a huge pool of people, and then a good, 40% of people are minorities, right? So the only remaining people who are not women and people of color, it's like 25% of the American population. are not women and people of color, right? So it's not hard to get to 50% women and people of color. But so because of that, because they're saying, you know, oh, we want to get to 50% women and people of color, they're saying that that means they're going to have to, like, cut standards and pilots are going to be bad, because the only way that you could get enough black pilots in is to lower the standards. And that's just obviously not the case, because there are a lot of structural reasons that, you know, white men are more often are more likely to be pilots. And they actually talk about it, some of it on the show, which is just bonkers.
Some of it is just the fact that it's other white dudes that are hiring the pilots.
Yes,
right?
Other white dudes that are hiring the pilots. But one of the things that they actually even mentioned is that flying is an upper middle class hobby. Like, who, when they're 14 years old or whatever, learns to fly? Rich people, right? And so there's a reason that it's a bunch of, like, white folks, white men, because they are more likely to have access to the resources to get that. There's not anything intrinsic in the genetics of white men that make us better flyers. It is just the circumstances of the society that we live in. And so we can change those circumstances by investing resources to make it easier for, you know, minorities and women to access the things that they need to learn how to fly. Like, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. It's just a reallocation of resources and an investment in these communities.
Yeah.
And never in these announcements about DEI are they saying they're changing their standards. They're just saying that they're investing in getting to this percentage to make to make their workforce more representative of the population of the American people, and to give people that have not had a chance to get into this high-paying profession a chance to get into it. It's wild. But it's funny, they did talk about some of those things.
Well, from now on, when I get on a plane and it's a white dude, I'm just going to assume the good old boy network put him there, and I'm going to be very scared that he's going to crash the plane, right? With that kind of logic.
I mean, it's bonkers. But, you know, it's
these
funny
people
that
are
they
millionaires. They literally make millions of dollars to say this kind of bullshit on TV and radio and YouTube. It's wild.
And so here's what, but somebody mentioned that, and then another person had another reason, a different reason maybe, that that pilots were mostly white men.
Well, the reason that pilots are all male is to become a pilot is hard.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
So.
Jesus.
Oh my God.
So, women don't do hard things?
Right. No, it's just super easy to be a woman. Like, there's no issues there at all. Not difficult at all.
Jesus. This sucker.
And the reason that, and so they were actually reacting to a DEI video from, like, I don't know, United or American or something, I can't remember which one, from like 2 or 3 years ago. And so then maybe you're thinking, wait a second, why are they reacting to a video that's 2 or 3 years old? What's the deal with that? And the reason is because airlines have been in the news recently for, you know, for screwing up. And so because of that, there's been this effort to obfuscate the reasons for that. Particularly, it really kicked off with this Boeing, when Boeing's plug door fell out. I think y'all all saw that video where, you know, people were in the plane and like this, the door just flew off, right? And so there's a really concerted campaign. And I honestly, with how much work it is doing for these corporations, I don't doubt that one day we see papers documenting the funding of these talking points from people like Boeing or something like that, because it is too beneficial for these corporations that these are the talking points when there are issues with airlines. And now all of a sudden we're talking about the issues with airlines is that there's too many black people or there's too many women, right? That's just too convenient for them. Because if you actually look at why that happened, it's corporate greed, it's disinvestment, it's outsourcing, it's subcontracting. Jacobin had a really good article about it. The article is titled, Workers at a Boeing Supplier Raised Issues About Defects. The company didn't listen. From the article, less than a month before a catastrophic aircraft failure prompted the grounding of more than 150 of Boeing's commercial aircraft, documents were filed in federal court alleging that former employees at the company's subcontractor repeatedly warned corporate officials about safety problems and were told to falsify records. Aviation experts say that the allegations against Spirit, which is the producer of the bodies of the airplanes, say allegations against Spirit are emblematic of how brand name manufacturers' practice of outsourcing aerospace construction has led to worrisome safety issues. The court documents allege that on February 22nd, 2022, one Spirit inspection worker explicitly told company management that he was being instructed to misrepresent the number of defects he was working on. You're asking us to record in an inaccurate way the number of defects, he wrote in an email to a company official. This makes us and put us in a very uncomfortable situation. We are being asked to purposely record inaccurate information. He then sent an email to Spirit's CEO as a last resort. When the employee first expressed concerns to his supervisor about the mandate, the supervisor responded that, quote, if he refused to do as he was told, the supervisor would fire him on the spot. After the worker sent the email about the faulty reporting, he was allegedly demoted from his position by management, and the rest of the inspection team was told to continue using the new system of logging defects. Ultimately, the worker's complaint was sustained and he was restored to his prior position with back pay, but he quit several months later and claimed that other inspection team members that he had worked with had been moved to new positions when, according to management, they documented too many defects. This specific defect, the plug door, the issues that had it fly out, that specific defect was discovered by Spirit months before they became public. The court documents claim that a former quality auditor with Spirit, Joshua Dean, identified the manufacturing defects, bulkhead holes that were improperly drilled, in October 2022, nearly a year before Boeing said that the defect had been discovered. Dean identified the issue and sent his findings to his supervisors on multiple occasions, telling management at one point that it was, quote, the worst finding he had encountered during his time as an auditor. However, Spirit concealed the defect, and in April 2023, Spirit fired him. Okay? It's not because there are too many black pilots. It's because these companies are greedy and want to do everything as cheaply and shoddily as possible. Dean also claimed to have noticed a significant deterioration in Spirit's workforce after Spirit went through several rounds of mass layoffs in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, despite the huge influx in government funding that they received. According to court documents, Spirit laid off or voluntarily retired a large number of senior engineers and mechanics, leaving a disproportionate number of new and less experienced personnel. So this is all easily explainable, right? Super easily explainable. Another thing that they were talking about later in that clip was they mentioned that the New York Times had covered the increasing instances of near misses of airplanes at airports, like airplanes almost hitting each other, right? The number of near misses is increasing. And so again, they say that, the New York Times, they're just worried about, this DEI stuff getting out of hand and killing somebody. That's why they're finally reporting on it. They're finally uncovering the news that DEI is resulting in a bunch of near misses. And so, you won't be surprised to learn that's not actually what the reporting found.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you can believe it, that's not what the reporting found. The reporting found many insiders describing the situation as a safety net under mounting stress. So far this year, close calls involving commercial airlines have been happening on average multiple times a week, according to a Times analysis of internal FAA records, as well as thousands of pages of federal safety reports and interviews with more than 50 current and former pilots, air traffic controllers, and federal officials. One problem is that despite repeated recommendations from safety authorities, the vast majority of U.S. airports have not installed warning systems to help prevent collisions on runways. Disinvestment, lack of funding. But the most acute challenge, the Times found, is that the nation's air traffic control facilities are chronically understaffed. While the lack of controllers is no secret, the shortages are more severe and are leading to more dangerous situations than previously known. As of May, only 3 of 313 air traffic facilities nationwide had enough controllers to meet targets set by the FAA and the union representing controllers. Many controllers are required to work 6 days a week, and a schedule that is so fatiguing that multiple federal agencies have warned that it could impede controllers' ability to do their jobs properly. The schedule that they have to work is called the Rattler, and the schedule is they have the starting time for their shift rotates over the course of the week. So on the first day, a controller might work an afternoon shift. From there, the shifts start progressively earlier, culminating in a 24-hour period in which the controller works both an early morning shift and, as few as 8 hours later, overnight duty. Many controllers call the schedule the Rattler because, like the snake, it has a nasty bite. And so, under those conditions, yeah, it's super actually predictable that you're going to get more near misses. There was one back-to-back planes nearly smashed into the Frontier jet whose nose was edging onto the San Francisco runway in July. And one of the underlying problems was the shortage of air traffic controllers. The FAA's internal report into the incident found that the Frontier pilot made a mistake, but the controller monitoring the runway didn't do enough to mitigate the pilot's error. Staffing during the incident was, quote, not normal for the time of day and volume of traffic. The controller, who was supposed to be supervising colleagues, was busy marshaling planes. Understaffing. The staffing there was 33% below the target set by a group of officials from the FAA and the controllers union. The Times found that the roots of the current staffing shortage dates back to as early as the 1980s, if you can believe it, when Ronald Reagan fired thousands of air traffic controllers. Since then, there have been waves of departures as controllers become eligible for retirement, and the FAA has struggled to keep pace. And then, during the pandemic, many controllers left, and the FAA slowed the pace of training new ones because of health restrictions. The staffing shortage became a crisis. In the past decade, the number of fully trained controllers has fallen by 10%, while airport traffic has increased by 5%. In just the past decade. I mean, that obviously that is going to result in worse outcomes. The FAA has required many controllers to work 6 days a week. Halfway through 2023, some controllers already had clocked more than 400 hours of overtime. Many controllers say that coupled with mandatory overtime, the job has pushed them to the physical and psychological brink. Some said they hadn't sought medical or mental health care because they were afraid of jeopardizing the medical clearances they needed to remain in their jobs. Instead, they self-medicated with banned sleeping pills and alcohol. I mean, there's absolutely no wonder all of this is happening, and there's no evidence to suggest that it's because there are too many black people. It's insane. And so, when I was hearing all of this from Charlie Kirk, I immediately thought about this clip from Shawn Fain at the UAW's convention a couple of weeks back, because, I just went through all of the specifics of the case and why conditions are deteriorating in these industries, and explain why it's not DEI. But Shawn Fain, in just a minute, really explains the dynamic and explains why they want you to focus on the race or the gender or the sexuality of somebody at a job instead of other things. Let's play this clip.
We fight for a political program that serves humanity, not the inhumane interest of the wealthy and corporate greed. Part of that means not falling for division. It's an old trick the billionaires play, and it's effective. Time and time again, the wealthy divide the masses over single issues, and the rich walk away with all the loot. They try to divide us by gender. They act like how you live your life or your gender identity is a threat to the person on the assembly line next to you or the work site next to you. They talk about who you love, who you marry, which bathroom you use, so they don't have to talk about who you work for, where the profits go, and who benefits.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.